This is Tim.
I'm Mulele.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim with Mulele in Tokyo. We're back. It's been a little while since we put out one of these.
Sorry about that.
But we're back, and also sorry to the people who sent us comics. It's been a little bit of a wait. What we're talking about this time is a one-shot comic, Eisenhorn Xenos. Now, I looked into this a little bit. This was originally 3 novels by Dan Abnett that came out about 15 years ago. And now apparently this is something that, it's a creator-owned thing by Dan Abnett. It's not owned by a corporation as far as I can tell. Mm-hmm. And now he's done a lot of work since then for Marvel and whatever. And this comic, as you can see at the end, it's meant to be sort of a lead into a new Eisenhorn game that they've put out. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure why Abnett didn't write this. Maybe he's just too busy. And so somebody else wrote it. Ryan O'Sullivan, penciled by Anthony Spey. And this is published by TPub in the UK. And I know nothing about this novel or the game or anything. All I can talk about is the comic. So if people know more about this than me, sorry if I sound a little uninformed. But anyway.
I'm going to be very uninformed. So, if people know more than the both of us, write us a letter.
Yeah. Continue the conversation. Mail at deconstructingcomics.com. So anyway, what this story is, I was thinking it would seem to be mixing kind of several story ideas we've seen elsewhere. It's a little bit Star Wars. It's a little bit, I don't know, Judge Dredd, Punisher. I'm not sure.
Do we have a synopsis or something? He's
an inquisitor, he says.
Yeah.
In service of some kind of a religion. And so he says, my work is simple, to protect the Imperium of Man against the forces which seek to unravel it, be they heretic, alien, or psyker. Now, I feel like this comic is maybe assuming that the reader is familiar with this already. It never explains what a psyker is. There aren't any psykers in the comic, I don't think. Psyker. But he's this guy, he's got a long coat and he wanders around with a sword and a gun. And he's got a couple of people with him. And at the beginning of this story, they're in a battle with some other people. And then he is... one guy is running towards him to attack him, and the guy is then shot and killed by this woman who's hiding in the shadows, named Loris Vibin. And the rest of this comic, she stays with him and kind of goes with him on subsequent missions. I don't know. A lot of it is fairly gory fight scenes.
Yeah.
And I thought the art was competent. I kind of liked the coloring by Andre Campos.
Yeah. Actually, the coloring was nice. In some of the more painterly panels, it was done quite well.
There were 2 things that bothered me about this.
About the art or the comic in general?
About the comic in general.
Uh-huh.
Well, one, I guess you'd have to say it's mainly an art thing, although maybe something that the writer also should have thought about. The physics of the violence.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned the place where that guy is about to attack Eisenhorn and then is shot by the woman.
Mm-hmm.
We see the bullet hitting him in the back of the head, and the front of his head is like exploding.
Yeah.
But like, where is his face? What happened to the front of his head? It looks like it's just like an open shell with this red goo coming out. But I don't see any pieces of the front of his head.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that a bullet would do that anyway. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen anyone getting shot in the head, but I'm not sure that it works that way. And the other thing was in the subsequent fight, Eisenhorn is fighting this creature called an orc, sort of on the order of the Hulk. He's big and green, and he's got kind of an axe, and he has this big steel jaw, and a piece of steel or something on one shoulder, and maybe steel wristbands, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So Eisenhorn at the end of the fight sticks his sword in the orc's stomach and then pulls it up. And we see a view from the back of the orc as he pulls the sword straight up and out and cuts the top half of the orc's body in half vertically. Not only slicing right through his skull like butter, but apparently slicing right through the iron jaw like butter.
Which I doubt would happen.
I mean, I feel like we should be seeing that jaw flying up in the air, being hit by the sword. We can't really see what happened to it because we're looking from the back, but I feel like the artist has forgotten completely about that jaw, just ignoring the fact that it's there.
Yeah.
So, it needed a little bit more thought, I think, in terms of how these things would work.
Well, so I'm going to just jump in. I have to agree with you on a lot of this stuff because although the artwork does look very nice, the pencil work is good, the inking is good. There were a couple of things that just kind of stood out to me as like little mistakes here and there. For example, in page 9, last panel, there's a vulture picking the eye out of one of the corpses. The corpse itself has a shadow, but the vulture doesn't, and it looks like it's kind of hovering. There's nothing in the coloring, and there's nothing in the inking that suggests that it's actually on the ground or not, but it's not in flight, so I'm assuming that it's just standing there. This is a little bit off-putting, but more than that, going back to the woman who shot the one guy in the back of the head, in the next panel, she steps out of the shadows. She has no gun. Not on her costume anywhere. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe she's got like a small of the back holster or something.
Well, he told her to drop her weapon, but we don't even see it on the ground. There's no evidence that it existed.
Yeah, there's no holster. There's nothing. So it just seems that the characters were designed a specific way, but weren't altered for the situations that they were actually in. And yeah, it does seem like the artist was only concerned with getting the most basic details down and finishing the job with enough flourishes to make it look competent, but not enough to make it expert. It is missing some stuff. Yeah. Oh, and I should say when they do battle the orc, she suddenly pulls this giant gun out of nowhere. I don't know where that gun came from. So, I mean, little stuff like that does kind of bug me and throw me out of the comic a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, looking at the panels right before that, I can't see that gun holstered or in her hand or anything.
Yeah.
The other thing that bothered me was more of a writing thing. So at the beginning, that first fight, he's with his two associates, and in this fight, and then he's wandering around with this woman, and he's coming to trust her more, I believe he says here or there. But I didn't feel like I was actually witnessing how these relationships worked, any growth in the relationship with her, or, showing us how well he knows these other guys. They were just kind of other people in the panel. And later in the story, he has to kill one of those guys who I think is supposed to be a good friend of his.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, he seems to kill him in almost kind of a flippant way. He's really cold. He doesn't give it a second thought. Like, oh no, he started, some other spirit is starting to take him over. Goodbye, blam. And I felt like that was a moment that was supposed to have some emotional resonance, and it didn't. Now I don't know anything about this character or how Abnett wrote him, but he seems so stone cold that I can't really get behind him as a hero. He's obviously the main character of the book. There's nowhere here for me to really emotionally invest in anybody in this book.
Man, that's some full-on hate.
Well, just show me, there's a reason why, in Star Wars, we see the characters, arguing and quipping with each other and whatever, to kind of, we actually get to know them and see their relationships forming. We don't see that in this.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of it seems that the writer is aiming for an audience that already knows the character. But if he's not, and this is supposed to be some sort of introduction for new people, they have done the wrong story. The connection to this woman that he has doesn't quite make sense to me. The designs are nice. The artwork is more or less fine with those couple of problems I mentioned. The writing seems to skip around a lot, and characters kind of come in and come out with no sort of anything. The thing that bugged me, and even though I say, damn, you really hated this, I have some more issues with a lot of this. The hero of the comic, what is his name? The Inquisitor?
Yeah, Eisenhorn.
Eisenhorn? Fucking hate him. He's just a dick, and there's nothing redeeming about him. And without knowing much about this world, this universe, I kind of see the references to Judge Dredd that you're talking about, except Judge Dredd is so over the top and just so bonkers crazy that it's kind of charming. Here, it's a little flat-footed, and he just comes off as an asshole. And there are some instances, some lines of dialogue here and there where I thought, I guess he's kind of a racist too. Not in the sense of he hates black people. That's not it. It's more in the sense of it echoes things of that nature in Earth history. Same kind of lines of dialogue. I think there's one towards the end of the book where he says, and so is what do you call him? A something lover?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that just reminds me of a lot of racist stuff I've heard in the past about a person who is white but loves someone who's black, and they're referred to as a whatever lover. But just seeing that kind of stuff isn't endearing. And if this is supposed to be the person I'm going to follow into the next story, God, fucking why? There is no reason for me to like this person. He's arrogant, and he is almost to the point of stupidity. Mm-hmm. He cares for nothing or no one except for the people he serves. Mm. So he's very much a kiss up, kick down person. And there's just nothing to him. He marches through the galaxy like a conquistador.
And the only thing he seems to really care about is his enemy, this guy called iClone, which, sorry, that's a terrible name. All I could think of is that somebody cloned his eye.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I imagine it's a play on Cyclone, but...
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of hits all the numbers it's supposed to hit with a comic, but it didn't feel that the story itself was really all that intriguing, and the character, oh fucking god.
Now, in the writer's defense, I would say apparently this was a one-shot comic to promote that game, and so he probably had a limited number of pages to hit whichever story beats he had to hit. So I think maybe that's one reason that the humanity got left on the cutting room floor.
Okay, but let me ask you then, because it does kind of beg the question: how did this comic come to be a comic that we're going to review here?
Well, the editor sent it to us.
I see. Well, the editor isn't wrong in sending it, but at the same time, if this was just an attempt to capitalize on the character for the game, reading this comic, I don't want to play the game. I don't want to read another one of these.
I think maybe they should, if in order to get some of the humanity back in, to really get us into the story, they needed to maybe slim down the story in other ways. They maybe needed to have another meeting about it or something. But yeah, I had to read it 2 or 3 times before I kind of even grasped what was going on. Well, as a matter of fact, the guy that he kills, his supposed friend, Krintos, reading it again, I thought, oh, Krintos is here at the beginning, too. I mean, I didn't even remember him, because there's no reason to remember him in that opening scene.
Not only did he get shot, he got shot off camera, and it's like, after the battle's over, they kind of, oh, you're shot? Well, go back to the ship.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He gets injured in that fight.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck point was that, except to get him and the girl alone to go battle the orc? I mean, it's just kind of nonsense. Or was that actually after 5 years later? I don't remember exactly. But yeah, the story that they tell here doesn't do anything. It doesn't set up anything. It doesn't... there's no drama here that I'm focusing on. There's no intrigue. They kind of hint at a possible romance, but it's handled like, oh, she's a woman. I could fuck her, but I'm not at the moment. And that's as far as it goes.
Well, she seems like such a blank slate. I didn't feel like I really got to know much of anything about her.
Well, I don't know why she's there, what she's doing. She doesn't even look like she has some sort of ulterior motive. She's just kind of there. Mm-hmm. And he's also kind of there. And the comic is both drawn and written very straight. And I think there, because there's no tongue in cheek here, it just comes off as just like, what the fuck is this? Personally, there's I mean, if we were to compare it to something that was similar, but it hit all the right buttons, Axe Cop. Axe Cop was over the top, ridiculous, super violent. Because, I mean, fuck, he's a cop with an axe who chops people's heads off. And actually watching the cartoon a couple of years after we reviewed it, that's even more violent. And it gets to the point where it's like, my God, you can't even show this shit on TV. And it was written by a 5-year-old. But because it was so crazy bonkers and the cop was so hardcore straight, it was actually fun to watch. This, no. Because it's just flat. There's no flair anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So even though it is, for the most part, competently drawn, beautifully colored, and somewhat competently written, I mean, were you picking out spelling errors? Were you picking out grammar mistakes?
I saw a typo in one place. I think was in or something, but otherwise I didn't notice much of that nature.
It's edited, obviously, because they're missing necessary chunks at this point, but they have all the parts. It just doesn't come together here. And I think it is just for the approach that they took, doing like a hard as nails, self-righteous schmuck as a hero, and everybody else is just kind of, they don't have the character of a sofa. I mean, collectively.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that.
Yeah, I think that's that. I'm sorry.
No.
It was not good. Now, I would like to say one last thing about this. The book is supposed to lead up to something, and I didn't know what it was leading up to. I see. It continued in Eisenhorn's Xenos the Game, out now on PC and iOS. Yeah, not interested. Not interested, because I don't know what the gameplay is. All I know is that there are these characters that I'm not really interested in. So there's no through line here except for a kind of hint at a story. And it seems like the writer himself was probably handicapped in some way, because I would assume that if he's writing this much, he kind of knows what's going on. And who he's handicapped by, I don't know, the editor or the
maker of the game.
Right? Yeah, the game, whatever they're beholden to. This was a mistake. It doesn't really lead up to anything. Yeah.
Okay, so if you'd like us to critique your comics, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. Send us about 30 pages and we'll read them and talk about them here. So till next time, this is Tim.
I'm Mulele.
Thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.